see. Good evening, and welcome to Sparko Gaming Supercars NZ. This is week 11 of our 12-week roster. This is Doug, and I'm joined in the broadcasting lounge tonight by old Shane, who's appears to be struggling to stay awake. How are we going there, Shane?
Yeah, good, thanks, Doug. A bit tired from work, but I'll do my best to stay with you through this race, or these couple of races. Yeah, week 11 coming into the last couple of weeks of the championship. So we're going to see these guys starting to look to get themselves best positioned for the best result they can in the championship standings when they wrap it all up next week. And we've come to NASCAR country with the Watkins Glen Cup circuit here in New York State.
Yeah, it is a different layout. The drive people at home will be able to see the hairpin-like corner at the sort of the top right-hand corner of the map there. Generally, the map carries on down and makes sort of a weird sort of high heel boot sort of looking shape, and that's why it's affectionately known as the Watkins Glen boot layout. And it is a track that features throughout the year, commonly with some endurance racing. This layout, yes, it's the NASCAR layout. How do we think our boys will go here tonight?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. So obviously, the base package of the supercar is not too dissimilar from a NASCAR. Generally, just a lot more aero on a V8 supercar than what a NASCAR has. So where we consider these quite a low aero car anyway, the NASCAR has almost no aero on it, so no downforce being generated in the quarters. But the base package of touring car, big V8, lock diff, very, very similar to those core principles in the NASCAR as well. So these guys should be well suited to this track, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they go around here.
Yeah, so just to give people maybe a bit of a look at home of what it might look like.
Oh, big moment there.
That was David Nash, teammate of Bruce Tannock, Mag Turbo entry, getting it all very wrong coming out of turn one. So let's see if we can find someone else to jump on board with. So this will be car 26, Oliver Pattinson, who's just redressing himself before coming in to do his lap. We'll see whether or not he commits to finishing up this lap as we go through. So yeah, week 11, Shane, I can't believe how fast the season's rolled through again.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it, how quickly the weeks roll by when we're doing this thing. Just it always seems to just fly by, and all of a sudden you're getting towards the end of a season and thinking about a new one again.
Yeah, well, it was a sort of a sharp reminder last week. I know you were busy late getting some work done, but we had the call up from Dad, old Sean McNamara, saying that he wanted to have a family meeting, otherwise called a team admin meeting, and I was sort of sitting back thinking to myself, well, I haven't really heard too much going wrong, so I wondered what that was about, and lo and behold, he was ready to rip into talking about next season all of a sudden, and plans and what we might be looking at doing slightly differently. So there's been some new ideas come out around that, and we had a bit of a post earlier shared on our Discord page that was something along the lines of next season race platform. It's only going to be 10 rounds next season, so looking at having, I suppose you'd call it an additional drop round take place, but the drivers are going to pick that one, so there's going to be a one day only vote on that, and I know some further discussions around that took place was that a few of the admin guys liked was that maybe that drop round that the people choose not to run, that we potentially still look at running it or a different track and using it as a fundraising event for one of our a local community like Westpac Helicopter or Cure Kids or something along those lines, just to do a fundraiser event where the drivers can enter and put a little bit of money aside and chuck that through, and we'll put it as a one donation before the end of the season.
Yeah, that's a very good idea. And of course, the other round that we will lose to bring it down to 10 rounds will be round 1. So the round 1 will still be contested, but it won't count for championship points. As ended up being the case this season, just to make sure that we get everybody seated in the right split for them, and then we can move forward into week 2 and kick the championship off from there.
Yeah, there you go. So that's where the remainder comes from that. So it will be a new look, and I think the general vibe has been well received. People enjoy the way we address certain things, or possibly try to sharpen things up and keep the what do you call them? The pencils sharp on the inked paper or some weird thing like that. I don't know. We try to do our best.
I'm not sure pencils on ink paper makes a lot of sense, but yes.
I don't know.
Ultimately, we are always looking to evolve, looking to see what we can do better, and we've come up with some new ideas, and we're going to try them out. Hey, if they don't work, at least we can say we tried, and we can move back next season. But I think these changes are quite exciting, and yeah, potentially they could make for good results.
Certainly will indeed. It will be interesting. We're saying that because obviously moving away from having those drop rounds, 2 or possibly 3 drop rounds taking quite a large effect and quite a large point removal from the total scoring at the end. It's really going to be about driver commitment for the season, turning up to each race, being smart, racing as best as you can, and appreciating that whatever your finishing points are, that's what it's going to be, as we see Shane Van Gisbergen parking his car up on the catch fence there, which did a really good job of catching all of his car, which couldn't be said the same about the stray wheel at the Indy 500 that took flight over the catch fence and buried itself into the front of someone else's car in the car park.
No, and very fortunate that a car parked up in the car park was the only thing it hit. Miraculously managed to not go into the stands and
Yes.
not hit anybody. So
Yes.
very, very, very thankful for that everybody walked away safe. Obviously, somebody's taken a lot of damage to their car, but cars can always be replaced. Lives cannot. So thank God for that. But yeah, I think IndyCar will be investigating that heavily and working into was there potentially something that could have been done to keep that wheel securely in the confines of the racetrack or attached to the car in some way. Obviously,
Yes.
they have tethers on there, but those only have a certain amount of strength, and
Yeah.
at some point those do have to break as well. But they will, I'm sure, investigate it to see if there's anything they can do better as a result of that.
Correct. And by means of saying that that it was that they were very lucky that it didn't hit anyone at the fact that that wheel departed the car and probably in excess of I don't know, maybe 250 kilometres or nearly close to 300 odd kilometres an hour when it flew over the catch fence. It literally went in between the end of the embankment um, stands on one side into a gap before the straightaways stand on the other side. So there was a very small area, V shape between stands on the corner, stands on the straight, and it went straight through the middle of it. If you were playing cricket, it would have been the best six in the game.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's a little bit heavier and moving a little faster than a cricket ball.
Yes. just a touch. Yeah, like Shane said, someone's car didn't leave the stadium the same way that it arrived, but I can only assume that someone's now got quite a awesome addition to the man cave that not many people would be able to say that they have.
That's right. Imagine being able to take that home. Hopefully, it's the person whose car got smashed that was allowed to take it home.
You mean unlike the poor 6-year-old kid that gets hit with the softball in the head and some other random adult runs off with the baseball that did it?
Yeah, actually, what would be really cool is to see that wheel get auctioned off for charity. That would be really cool to see.
Yeah, and possibly potentially paying for any unpaid insurance claim debt for the damage to the car as well.
Although I'd imagine the event would have some form of liability insurance that would cover that.
Interesting thought. Yes, I hadn't thought about that as much. I know with most motorsports events, insurance doesn't really come into play, but I suppose that's more race car related as opposed to spectator related. So
Yeah.
you might.
Although I suppose you do always have the signs around saying motorsport is dangerous, so that I guess is its own form of liability waiver, having that signage around. So it'll be quite interesting how all that works.
That's
Anyway, we're not here to talk about the Indy 500.
Well, someone at home's enjoyed it. Kurt Wabgin or Vibegin maybe. His comment was really lucky.
Wow.
So it's good.
And dad joke of the year goes to
Kurt didn't. That's great, rightio. Like you said, we're not here to talk about the Indy 500. We're here to talk about our Div 1 races at Sparko Gaming Supercars NZ, featuring this week's sponsor of Simblax. Unfortunately for tonight's race, there doesn't appear to be any of the Simblax cars in here, but I do know that their Div 1 racer is currently sitting 6th in the championship. But just down in Div 2, and I suppose you'd call owner of Simblax, Stefan Adams, is sitting in P1. So thoroughly enjoying having those guys giving us a week's worth of sponsorship and giving a shout out to them. Good guys, get in touch with Stefan if you're looking at anything possibly sim related. Good bunch of guys to talk to.
yeah, of course. If you're looking for a seat or some gloves or some boots, hit up all ports about their Sparko gear.
Definitely.
But for sure, Simblacks for all your Sim Magic gear. So great range of wheelbases and wheels, and some very nice load cell pedals available in Sim Magic through Simblacks, and of course some very good Sim chassis that Simblacks make themselves as well.
Indeed, indeed. Rightio. So whilst all that was taking place, the qualifying, Shane Van Gisbergen has taken out P1 for tonight. That's really awesome to see from him. Just behind him is Bruce Tannock in second, and then Timothy Vaughan in third spot. David Nash, Mag Turbo entry there has got taken fourth. Just waiting on Connor Nixon and Oliver Patterson from Vermilion Motorsports to jump in. But in seventh spot, Roger Forbert over Jason Cossey. And look at that, the three Dirty Diesel Ds, 8, 9 and 10, Jason Cosson, Eamon Young and Tony Lynch. So I'm guessing they're running one shared setup. Back into 11th spot quickly. Aaron Goodrick, Rosetown entry ahead of Craig Mason and teammate Brett O'Keefe there in 13th. Blake Greenhall takes out P14 over Ryan Cottrell. Waiting on Dane to join, although he may not make the grid. Scott Pickering rounding out 17th as the lights jump up on the board and we are getting ready to hit it.
And they're away, and it's pretty even at the front. Shane and Gisbergen looking to come across and cover, but Bruce has just managed to get the better second phase and get alongside, but Shane's going to have the inside line. Bit of 3 wide involving one of the digital bogus cars, the Vermilion car, and Roger Forbert was on the inside. All getting through nice and cleanly though. Sorting themselves out up through the S is a tricky spot, and that was Aaron Goodrick, I think, getting into the wall in the Rosetown car. Craig Mason coming alongside up into the bus stop, just slots in behind though. Looks like Aaron was lucky enough to get away with that contact with the wall. Not too much damage. Out in front at Shane Van Gisbergen, opening up a half-second lead over Bruce Tannock as they take the NASCAR line out of the loop there.
Oh.
And Aaron hard into the wall and getting stuck in the Armco, having to tow back to the pits. That's massively unfortunate for Aaron Goodrick.
That was very unlucky, and that'll be him sitting there now for a couple of minutes, which would be almost all but put an end to this first heat race of tonight, as we see the second lap opening up with Craig Mason down the inside there of Blake Greenhall in the property edge entry, and a little bit further towards the front we have Connor Nixon just starting to put a bit of pressure onto the back of David Nash and the Mag Turbo entry there. See if how close he gets and how he approaches this big long running hairpin corner down the bottom here. Keeping it nice and tight to the inside line, getting it onto the power nicely. Dave just getting a little bit unsettled and having to bounce across the curb on that one.
So you see a lot of guys going right out over the curb there. You can actually go a long way out there before you pick up an off track. It allows you to run the NASCAR line there, but go too far and you will pick up an off track and potentially a slowdown as well if you get a bit too greedy.
Just out through here is another one as well. There's a lot of runoff out here now, but running yourself too wide over that ripple strip and you'll be likely to get yourself into some trouble with the points penalty people at home. Connor making a massive run through the uphill there, sitting well into the draft on David as he goes for a defensive line coming down into the bus stop. Just slotting back in front of Connor there to get the optimum line coming through that section.
Yeah, so it's a tricky track to make a pass around here. You do have to set the pass up. We saw Connor give him the good exit and give him the run on David, but Kind of didn't get the timing quite right on that one. He got stuck in behind a little bit up through the S's and wasn't able to use that momentum to his advantage and just had to back out of it a little bit and wasn't able to get himself in the right place going into the bus stop. But we can see him here coming out of the final corner right under his rear wing, tucking into that draft. He's got his teammate Timothy Vaughan in behind him as well. They're running slightly different liveries tonight, but they are both under Vermilion Sim Sports. So potentially, if Timothy can stay with him up here, he might be able to give him a bit of help, but it looks like there's a bit of a gap at the moment.
Connor seems to always make such a good run up there through the uphill section. I wonder if he's got just slightly better cornering ability, where David seems to just be able to hang on to keeping ahead of him during the fast straightaway sections, running probably a slightly less downforce on his setup. But he's definitely having to work for his dollar tonight, as the gap between him and his teammate Bruce Tannock is slowly stretching out ahead of him.
Yeah, it's hard to tell in the sim, and it could be just my imagination or the different colouring on the two different cars, but I feel potentially David's rear wing is a little bit flatter than Connor's, so you could be right there, Doug. Connor able to use that extra downforce through the corners to close up, but David able to use the extra straight line speed to stay ahead down the straights.
Yes, that is my thought as well. Just by sight of eye, seem to be a little bit more slippery and on the difference of that car. At the front though, this man here, Shane van Gisbergen, stretched out to just nearly 2 seconds over Bruce Tannock in the Magan Turbo Car 31 entry there. David Nash, his teammate, is still sitting in 3rd spot. Connor Nixon there in 4th over his other teammate there, Timothy Vaughan, who actually fell back a couple of spots from the start. Just behind Timothy we have Jason Cossey. And he splits the other Team Vermilion Motorsports entry there. Those guys, we didn't actually touch on it, but those two there, Connor Nixon and Oliver Pattinson, have had a refresh to their paint scheme. The Vermilion paint scheme has now been tidied up with some reflective rainbow splashes on the car over the V&Ms, and looks certainly very, very cool. So.
Yeah, we got the inside word from Connor during the week that Vermilion will be looking at running liveries as a tribute to a number of different causes. So obviously this one, tribute towards the rainbow community, which Connor himself is a part of. So very cool to see them running liveries for causes that are close to their heart, and yeah, we'll see potentially some more special liveries coming out from them over the course of the year.
Yeah, it's very cool. I'll check back down through the order a bit in a minute. Just looked like things were getting a wee bit spicy here between the two teammates of Connor Nixon and Timothy Vaughan, as that margin had actually closed down between them. So even though Connor was putting pressure on David, Tim's out there to race, and he's racing for points as well, coming up into the final couple of races of the series.
I should add as well that Tim might have been just a little bit slow to update his livery tonight, because he's showing in the rainbow livery on my screen, but he's showing in the old livery on your screen. So potentially he only made that change after you joined, but before I joined. So
okay,
that could be obviously different liveries on those cars. So potentially, obviously you're not going to be refreshing your trading paints right now, but potentially next week we could be seeing that livery on Tim's car as well.
We'll be able to have a look during the halfway point and see whether or not I can get that one to pop up as well. But yes, that's the difference between the old one that you can see on Timothy's car there, just behind Connor in front, white versus black. And feel free to put your comments in on the YouTube channel on what you think looks good. But as we said before, Connor's team now running the rainbow colours, and they'll be representing some other liveries moving forward throughout the season as they support different areas, different venues, different peoples, and qualities of life. And here at Supercars NZ, we heavily endorse all of it. No social hate, and everyone is allowed to be whoever they want to be, because what matters is they are here and they are racing and giving us some awesome entertainment. Just going back down through the order, so we were just watching Jason Cossey there in 7th spot over Roger Forbert. Now in 7th, as Oliver Pattinson has gone into the pits, along with Eamon Young there in the background. Tony Lynch now just up into 8th spot with that corrective order, with the guys taking place in the pits. There's Brett O'Keefe, car number 22, OKMS KRF entry, doing the good thing. Just behind him, Ryan Cottrell, number 11, mostly black livery with a couple of silver ferns on the back of his car. So even for a Mustang, sometimes the simplest livery can still look really cool. And he's getting hounded at the moment by Blake Grenhall.
He sure is, in that property edge Mustang. Heavily inspired by the cold drive Mustang that Blanchard Racing Team use in About Supercars.
Yep. And that livery was done by this man here.
Yeah, Scott does amazing work on his liveries, so if you need a livery done, talk to him, he might be able to help you out.
Even that livery there of Scott's, I mean, just how tidy and cool is that thing looking?
Yeah, it'd just be looking a lot nicer if it was on a Commodore, I reckon. But hey, we can't have everything, can we?
No, that's right. And as I can see from tonight, it seemed to be there was a fairly even split between Holdens and Fords, but I think the Holden badge is just taking a wee bit more of a leadership. But let's just have a look, and we'll let the people at home make a bit of a call on that. Just ignoring those last few names from 17 down. What do you reckon? Pretty even split, isn't it?
Well, it looks like overall there's a few more Fords in the field, but certainly those at the top strongly represented by the line there.
Yep. Certainly sitting up there. As we are now halfway into this race. Shane Van Gisbergen has well and truly stretched out his margin, with the likes of Bruce Tannock and David Nash and a few others having now stopped for their pit stops. So closest person to Shane is Timothy Vaughan, who we were talking about earlier, and that gap margin is just a fraction over 6 seconds. It'll be interesting to see how Shane runs this, whether he takes the opportunity to come in and pit now. There we go. So just as we were talking about it, I wondered whether he might have been gamey to push on, and with already having a good lead and just letting it run down. But I suppose he's worked it out, play it safe. Halfway mark's about as good as what you want to do. So 22 laps for this race, Shane, and then feature race tonight was 30. Is that right?
That's correct.
So similar lap numbers to what we had last week, but just a slightly longer lap time. So as we see Shane come out of the pit lane, and that margin between him and Bruce pretty much the same as what it was before the pit stop took place, just down to about 1.7 seconds now. Bruce will be able to probably make that a little bit smaller as Shane now battles to get 4 tyres up to temp.
Yeah, so 4 brand new done up tyres on that car, and they go on cold, so they take a little bit of time to get them up to temperature. No tyre warmers on these cars, so a bit of time to get them up to temperature and into their working window, and then once he's got them there, I'm sure we'll see him setting some blistering lap times again.
Very much so. As the order now rechanges itself round.
Oh, that's a move teammate on teammate.
So that's Timothy Vaughan actually keeping his position in between Connor and Oliver. And now as we see those 3 very close together.
So that's quite interesting. I had wondered if they had all pitted together to work together using the draft out of turn 3, and then again on the straight after this loop. I had wondered if they'd pitted together to be able to use that draft to do some good work together, but it looks as though they've all pitted 1 lap after the other. So we've got Connor came in on lap 9, then David came in on lap 10, before Timothy finally came in on lap 11.
Okay, well, yeah, quite interesting. And that was actually a pass. I apologise, it wasn't Tim defending his position. It was a pass on Oliver Pattinson. We'll go back and have a quick look at that. And I'd say he certainly had to work for that move. It wasn't given up to him as easily as what it could have been, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's what I like to see. Obviously, as teammates, there's always going to be a certain amount of strategy that you can talk to each other, work around, but we want to see guys racing, we want to see guys fighting, and it's cool that even as teammates, they're allowed to fight each other on track. Obviously, nobody has to pay the bill if they crash, so you get a bit more freedom between teammates than you might get in real life compared to the sim.
That's right. We're just watching Ryan Cottrell here, the only driver left in the field who hasn't pitted. Currently sitting P1, and behind him is Aaron Goodrick in the Rosetown Motor Group entry, who's a lap or 2 down and sitting 5 spots down from where he started in P16.
Trying to get a lap back though. Obviously, when he towed, that will count as his compulsory pit stop. So when Ryan takes his pit stop, we'll see Aaron get a lap back, but he's trying to find a way around organically at this stage.
I'm not saying you have to do a lap, I just thought it'd be interesting for the folks at home to see what a lap may look like from this point of view.
Yes, Showmango's been coming down into turn 1 on the brakes, back to 3rd gear. Try and use the curb to help rotate the car and then run it out, make sure you keep a wheel on that curb on the exit, not to pick up an off track. Toying with the throttle, just a slight lift up through there. GT3 cars can get through flat out, a bit harder to do so on these. If you've got the right setup on fresh tyres, you can get it, but he just had to take a little bit of a lift. up to 6th gear on the brakes, down to 4th gear, climbing all over the curves through the bus stop. Basically make the track as straight and as short as you can there. Leave it in 4th gear into the loop. Patient with the throttle, try not to light it up. You can see I'm making those little corrections all the way through there. So I set the car up very pointy. That's how he tends to like his cars in the sim. And then turning into turn 6 here. 4th gear, keep it in 4th gear for the final corner, and oh, there's a big moment out of there, big correction, but gets it together and finishes the lap and starts another one.
Well, thank you, Shane. I really wasn't trying to put you on the spot with that one, but like I said, it just would be interesting for the folks at home to see what a minute and 7-second lap around this place looked like. And yes, he certainly had his hands full coming out of the final corner there with a bucket load of left hand down to keep the car moving in a straight general direction there. I'm interested. We'll have a quick look and see how the top speeds have been looking for that race. Not something that we usually look at or really even care to bring up, but looks like the Patterson has cracked the winner on that one. 282 kilometres. That's obviously some really cool effect of the draft, whereas we see Shane Van Gisbergen has not had any great deals of tow around the track, and sitting 275. So it's quite impressive to see the differences there.
Yeah, definitely some very fast straights around this track, and obviously when you tuck into the tuck in behind the car in front is moving a lot of air out of the. You can tuck into some nice clean air, well, some nice dirty air actually, and move through that air a lot more easily, and less resistance means more speed, and you can close up to the rear bumper of the car in front that way. Of course, where that pays a price is in the corners. You're not getting that nice clean air coming over your front splitter and your rear wing, and you can lose a fair bit of grip through your downforce as a result of that. That was Timothy Vaughan going very wide. I would say that was wide enough to pick up at least an off-track, maybe even a slow down. So we'll see if he needs to slow down to serve that. It looks like maybe he got away with it.
Possibly. See how much he lifts off before the end of the straightaway here as we come across the line. No, there we go. So he's definitely got one.
Over. Oh, he pulls over, but he didn't. Oh, that's interesting.
Yep.
Pulls over, but doesn't slow up and let Oliver pass. So
again, being part of a three-way team, you know, they could be in communication with each other and working that out. Tim might have done enough to let that bleed, and Connor might have pulled his speed back a wee bit to keep those guys moving around together in a bit of a fashion. But I wonder if, I mean, I don't know how effective it may or may not be. I suppose it all comes down to how each car gets its run out through the corners, as we see Timothy Vaughan really running it out wide there again. Similar line that Shane Van Gisbergen took before. But would they make up much of a time difference over these short few laps by allowing each other to leapfrog each other down through the straightaway?
yeah, that'd be quite interesting. I think the straights are probably not quite long enough for that to work. I think at some point somebody has to back out of it to get all cars through the corner nicely, so you probably lose just a little bit too much momentum through that to actually make it worth it. That would be my thinking behind it, but it would be interesting to see if anyone was prepared to try it and see if they can make it work to get some speed as a team working together.
Yeah, it's just interesting because we look at the top speed differences again quickly from these guys here. Connor's been able to pull out 280, 284. Tim Vaughan at 283, Oliver Patton's 286. surely, especially coming down through that back section before the bus stop, um, allowing one other car to roll forward and maintain that highest top speed would have to make a small difference, but there's enough small differences over a short race, enough to keep you close enough to the guys in front. I suppose that's the big question, and what the risk versus reward will be for that kind of action.
Yeah, sure, as we see Connor getting big time sideways off turn one, that could create a sniff for Timothy Vaughan here if he wants to try and take it. Is there going to be any team orders here that they stay in line, or is Tim going to push for the pass here? He certainly pulls out of the draft. Tucks back into the braking zone though. Not a corner to try and fire it down the inside. You sort of need to be alongside before the braking zone and then put yourself in a position where going into the corner you've got far enough alongside or even ahead to be able to say that that's my corner, because either way somebody has to back out of it. So if you want to make the pass there, you have to be that guy that's put yourself in the position to have rights to that corner, I think.
So just quickly, as the white flag comes up, black green hall crash. I'll have a quick look at this.
Final corner coming out. Oh, just lining up the tyres on that exit curb and getting caught up in the wall. So a couple of glitches we're seeing tonight with cars getting stuck on the wall. A little bit unfortunate considering this track had a big overhaul
Yes.
about a year ago now. Actually, I believe it was just before the 6 hour last year, which is coming up again. So.
So yeah, but unlucky those guys of Aaron and Blake tonight have both found the unfortunate dealings to this hand of their race so far, and that's well and truly put both of those guys to the bottom of the pack.
Oh, and there's contact between the teammates, Timothy Vaughan and Oliver Pattinson getting together.
Yep. We'll go back and have another squiz of that as a second, as we just see Shane Van Gisbergen roll across the line ahead of Bruce Tannock there, and teammate David Nash rounding out P3. Connor Nixon rolling across the line very slowly there in fourth. Oliver Patterson managing to hold on to fifth. Jason Cossey there in sixth. Roger Forbert there in seventh. Timothy Vaughan unbelievably managing to get across the finish line in 8th over Evan Young and Craig Mason in 10th, who crosses the line.
And that's contact between teammates, but after the line, I think.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to have a quick squiz back on this and see what
it's just looked over into the warm up and you've lost that data.
I did. Oh well, we saw part of it live.
We did.
And not usually by trend, I would tick back to other events taking place as the lead car was going to come around through the last few corners, but I saw an unmistakable bright red indicator out the corner of my eye, which is the gap margin which I'm looking at on the SDK platform, which we rely heavily on for our live timing and I suppose you'd call it data control for the races. And that margin was lower than any I had seen throughout the race, so hence why I clicked onto that. So I apologise if you really wanted to see SVG come around through those last few corners, but hopefully you got some sweet kicks out of seeing Timothy Vaughan getting launched into the air by his teammate, if that's what you're into.
Well, it was certainly very interesting. I think I'm glad we caught that, because obviously we weren't able to quite grab the replay of that. Unfortunately, that's going to mean we're not going to quite be able to pick apart what happened there, but I did hear a message from race control that's been looked at. Obviously, between teammates, they might not have necessarily called it in, but what what we have been alerted to by race control is that you don't necessarily have to call it in anymore for them to look at it. If they see something that they think they need to look at, they will look at it.
Well, there you go. So I've actually just manually gone back on iRacing a lap, so maybe we'll be able to undress what happened, as it looked like there's definitely been a run for position made through there by Oliver Pattinson on Timothy Vaughan. I think it was coming through out of this corner here where Tim's run wide, as he has done in other. There's a bit of an overlap, and just not enough racing room given to each other, I imagine. I don't think there was anything too malicious there from casting our eye back onto that, but I would say as far as luck goes, seeing what happened to Aaron Goodrick and Blake Greenhall, and even Shane Van Gisbergen during qualifying, getting caught in the catch net, Timothy Vaughan was very lucky to get his car up and rolling to come and cross the finish line there. So
yeah, I think I would look at that as probably both guys needed to give each other a bit more room. Under the rules of racing, technically they each only have to give a car's width to the edge of the track, and they both did that. So I think, as far as any penalties, I think it would be called a racing incident.
correct. That's
but
what I thought
for
as well.
sure, from a team management point of view, you would be pulling both those guys aside and giving them a pretty stern talking to, at least.
Yes, and with the racing platform of iRacing the way it is, as realistic as it is, that it is still obviously a computer simulation. So crashing doesn't really have a physical impact on people, nor does it have an impact on race team budgets. But with considering how serious a lot of the people on the platform do take it, and the team orders will still apply, I imagine there would be a conversation taking place in their chat group about now.
Yeah, for sure. And while it doesn't affect budgets and it doesn't any, there's no risk of injuries as such. What it does affect is results, and these guys are racing towards the front end of Division One because they're very competitive. They want to get good results. They want to see all of their team get good results, and unfortunately, they've probably. Well, Timothy was obviously able to salvage a decent result from that one.
Yes.
So they've probably got away with it a little bit, but it could have been much better, and they've thrown it away a little bit there, I think.
Could have been a lot more different. And I suppose the big thing to take away with it as well, we talk about our main sponsors and our weekly sponsors and stuff like that. A lot of the people who are racing are representing real companies, have real sponsorship deals going on with the with the names that are on the side of their car, and to be doing so, there has to be a level of professionalism taken on board where you need to do the best that you can do, because you may find that what might be a small little bit of money come your way, or helping towards funding for equipment for you to have fun time on your simulator eventually dries up, and you'll end up just running a blank car.
Yeah, that's right. So we're taking towards the end of the warm up now. I did want to come back to a little bit that I mentioned during the hot lap with SVG, where I mentioned that he likes his cars set up quite pointy in the sim. That actually tends to be a attribute of most of the fast guys, the guys we would tend to refer to as aliens. The way they set up their cars in the simulator for maximum speed is to be very pointy, very much wanting to turn through the corner, so that they're actually turning the car, they're turning the wheel the minimum amount possible to get it turned into the corner, and then just controlling the slide all the way through the corner. That seems to be the way the fastest guys are able to get results. Of course, you have to be very well tuned with that car to be able to control it without putting yourself into a spin or a crash.
100%. And as we've reflected upon before, that the vehicles that these guys are driving here tonight, the V8, the Aussie V8 Supercar, the way that it's modelled here in iRacing, probably does truly reflect its real life counterpart with over 600 odd horsepower and a couple of tonne worth of car. It's just an animal. It really is. It's one of the hardest cars to drive and put around a track. So when you get people like this who can do this day in, day out, and then come along and do it here as well, it's even cooler.
Yeah, sure is. They set off into race 2, and I think looks like Bruce has gotten a better start at the front row. He's able to get a slide overlap, but again Shane having the inside to take the lead through turn 1. Digital Bogan's car on the outside of the Manu car there, and everybody through turn 1 nice and cleanly, but still settling down in behind. Timothy Vaughan battling with Craig Mason side by side up through the S's, sliding in behind now out onto the straight, sliding into the draft. Settling down into single file. Couple of peaks out of the draft towards the back, but everybody behaving themselves, as that was Blake Greenhall firing straight on at the bus stop, and I think he managed to keep it out of the wall. I'm sure we'll come back and have a look at that later.
I think he did.
Timothy's still looking to find a way past Craig Mason, getting an overlap on the outside. He's going to be coming into turn 6. Can he carry the momentum around the outside? He's done quite a good job at getting loose on the curb. Manages to hold the inside line into the final corner though. That was a very well crafted pass.
Certainly was.
And now he's just got to be aware that Craig's been able to get the better exit out of the final corner. But it looks like he's going to be able to hold him off into turn 1 and make that move stick.
Well, what an amazing opening lap. Shane Van Gisbergen hasn't been able to do too much as of yet, and I suppose with the way he commanded a very happy finish to the race of the previous, he's doing what he does best, and at the moment Bruce Tannock only 0.3 of a second behind him, with his teammate only a similar margin behind himself, but David Nash already possibly getting put onto a bit of pressure by Connor Nixon in the car 168 entry, and it's quite amazing just to see how that margin between him and his teammate has already formed.
Yeah, so reasonable gap opening up very early on. Connor able to slip close out in front. Oliver just dropping off a little bit at the moment.
And trying to do some crafty stuff to possibly shake Jason Cossey from behind him, sitting on his draft. But weaving down the straightaway is not also going to be giving you much straight line speed, so we'll see where that ends up. Jason Cossey will be looking at wanting to round him up if he can, to pull back in onto the back of these guys here who are just stretching their gap at the front a little bit further ahead. Just falling back down the order here a wee bit, I saw some very close data between Craig Mason and teammate Brett O'Keefe there, as Craig actually gives Brett a wee bit of a rub across the back bumper of Brett O'Keefe's. Don't believe it was intentional. I think Brett was just a little bit out of shape as he came through the bus stop. Aaron Goodrick has made a very quick and early command to moving back up through the grid order after his drummers in the first race, up 5 spots currently into P10. Something didn't look too healthy there, so Timothy Vaughan just falling a bit out of sync there and dropping off the back of Roger Forbert, who we follow at the moment, car 51 Monster entry there.
Yeah, so Roger on the back of a nice little battle group there. Looked like Timothy had closed up onto the back of that group. Just that little mistake at turn 1 caused him to drop back, but we know he's got pace, so I'm sure he will climb back onto the back of this group, but he will need to find a way to pick his way through cleanly and without locking up and going wide again.
There we go. So that now puts us on to lap 5 of 30, and a lot of the guys certainly hammering into this feature race with a lot to prove.
As Rogers able to make half a move there, gets the nose alongside, not quite able to get it done, but he should have the better momentum here and tuck it into the draft as well, so we'll see if we can use that momentum down the straight. Maybe pulling out of the draft a tad early there. Does it cost him?
Whoa.
Oh! Timothy getting all crossed up there. I held my breath for a moment. I thought I was going to see him pile into the back of Roger Forbert there. Luckily he was able to gather it up.
That was tight. Another close margin here. Connor Nixon all over the back of David Nash. We'll see what he looks like coming out of the final corner.
Looking at that picture David's got there, I think he spelled Joe Dirt wrong.
That picture there.
Correct.
That's stunning.
That is very impressive.
Connor just having a wee bit of oversteer issue there by the sound of it. He just by the sound of it, to me, he had to take a couple of extra dabs at the throttle to keep the car moving in a forward direction than a sliding towards the outside wall direction.
I'll take your word for it because unfortunately I can't hear what you're hearing.
I hear lots of things you don't hear.
I'm sure you do, Doug.
Shush, Doug. Okay.
Lay off the acid, Doug.
But yeah, certainly going back to what I was talking about before, Shane Van Gisbergen still there, just in front of these other few drivers. Certainly not pulling away as much as what he had during the first race. I suppose the differences on that is just wanting to extend that tyre life a little bit more, possibly having taken on board a little bit more fuel. As we see Aaron Goodrick just starting to make a move there on Roger Forbert. I don't think he'll be able to get much done coming down into the bus stop. It's not really a place where you can make a pass.
Well, I'm impressed they both got through there cleanly. It's going to open an opportunity for Craig Mason to get around Roger as well. He's down the inside through the loop. Roger hangs in there and he's going to get the inside line into turn 6 now. But if Craig can hang it there, he'll get the inside for the final corner, but Roger able to just squeeze him out and hold on to that spot.
Did indeed.
And pressure coming on Craig from Eamon Young and the Digital Bogans car behind as well.
Yes. It's all
that's something you've got to be careful of in tight battle groups like this. You can move offline to try and make a pass, but if you're not quite able to complete that pass, you can make yourself vulnerable to somebody behind getting alongside and getting a pass done on you. Luckily Craig was able to see off that challenge from Eamon as he now goes to the outside of Roger Forbert towards the bus stop. Who's going to command that track position? It's a single line corner. Craig goes deep, cuts across the chicane. He'll have to serve a slowdown. First job is getting it pulled up without hitting anybody. He does a good job of that. Now he's going to have a slowdown to clear, and I would suspect we're going to see him move offline. I would hope we're going to see him move offline down the straight to clear that. He does move offline. He's just trying to bleed it off without conceding the position, and I think he's managed to do that. There's a bit of a sporting question there, but we'll leave it in the hands of race control if I think there's anything they need to do there. Ideally, we would like to see guys moving offline if they're going to serve the slowdown, but potentially he's seen an opportunity to be able to bleed it off without conceding position, and he's managed to get that done.
Wow, there you go. Up here in 6th spot, Jason Cossey under real threat from Timothy Vaughan as they come through the S's and up the hill, up towards the bus stop again.
So Jason was a bit deep into the bus stop, and that put him a little bit wide, left him a little bit vulnerable, but he's been able to hold on so far. But Timothy just getting alongside here on the outside. Can he stick it there? He's going to try. Just manages to keep the nose in and brave on the brakes into the final corner as well to get the move done. That was well done.
It was a very, very tidy move, and one we've actually seen Tim do a few of tonight. Not the first time he's done that, so being able to hang on round through the outside line definitely gives a commanding role moving forward into the final corner. But as you and I both know, Shane, that having that better run on the outside to turn in towards the apex on the final corner certainly pays more dividends, having that top speed run down through one of the only few main straightaways on the track. As we can see, even though he's got that pass done, they've still lost quite a bit of track position to the cars in front of them.
And that's it. When you have those battles, you can very quickly lose time when if you're both going through a number of corners offline. It costs both guys a fair bit of time, and you can see them drop away from the cars in front, maybe allow the cars behind to close the gap up a little bit. So sometimes it can be a little bit better if you know someone's faster than you to just make it a bit easier, let them by and lose minimal time getting passed by them.
Correct. So Shane now with his tyres nicely warmed up and with clear air, not having to battle anyone, he's been able to stretch out his lead over Bruce Tannock to 1.7 seconds currently. As we now venture towards lap 12 of this 30 lap feature race. Bruce Tannock there, really enjoying the new look livery on their cars as well.
Yeah, we've seen previously the white and blue Megan Turbo cars, now sporting the all black with the sponsor's sign riding around it, and it's very tidy, it's very effective.
Yes, indeed, and a couple of cheeky Red Bulls sitting on the front corners of the car there. Not too bad at all. Craig Mason still putting on the hurt on the back of Roger Forbert there, as that margin is now down to a very passable kind of margin.
Craig's going to look to make the move into the bus stop again. Does he get it pulled up cleanly this time? He got it in there, but just carrying too much momentum to get it all the way through. Maybe left a little bit more room than to as well. I think he got to a point where I think Roger had given up the position to him, but he maybe wasn't quite sure whether the overlap was still there or not, and left a bit of room where maybe he didn't need to.
Yeah. And it begs the question, it's twice now where Craig has had overall speed and pace to be lapping faster than some of the other cars around him, and using that draft coming up through the S's and then down through that straightaway before the bus stop, it works in his favour right up until the point where it needs to stick, and you have to then consider your options and go, okay, maybe I need to get as close as I can to him and then come into the pits and hope that the undercut can work, that when you've got a pit before these guys, knowing that you'll be able to try and gain that time back.
Yeah, 100%. If you can't do it on track, try and do it through pit strategy. And obviously if he comes in, gets out from under the rear wing of Roger there, and fresh tyres on as well, that can potentially give him an advantage. Certainly, it's a tricky one into that bus stop. It's a good drafting opportunity, but you arrive at that corner where it's very much a single line sequence of corners, and as I mentioned earlier, you have to put yourself in a position where you command the corner. You earn the right to take control of the corner, and the other guy basically has no choice but to concede to you. If you can't get into that position, then you either have to concede yourself, or you're going to end up in quite a big accident down there. So we've seen so far Craig's been able to avoid any accidents, trying to get the job done under brakes, but carrying too much momentum through the corner and not able to make it stick. So potentially finding another way around, whether that be through the pits or whether that's trying to set up the run through there and the loop and try and get a run down into the last couple of corners. That could be another option for him there.
That's it. Just having a quick look back here. This is a pass 4 position. Connor Nixon over David Nash. And that was just before Bruce Tannock in front of Connor there went into the pits as well. So it'll be quite interesting to see where that all plays out after Connor takes his pit stop, which he's actually in there now, and so is Craig Mason. So it's going to be very interesting to actually see where both of those guys come out in respective position to the people they were battling with just prior before. So
yeah, and Roger has already been in the pits, so I'm interested to see where Craig comes out relative to Roger.
Yes.
Obviously pitting a lap later, I wonder if he's banking on that lap on warm tyres while Roger's getting him up to temperature. But you can see Roger's just gone past and he's actually opened a gap, so you can see the undercut definitely the way to go. And probably a little bit of a missed opportunity for Craig there.
Yeah, well and truly.
In fact, he's even dropped behind his teammate here as well. So a slow pit stop, I think, for Craig by the look of that.
Yes, actually quite a bit. The faster guys, Roger, who he was battling with, was 9.5 seconds, and Craig was 16.5 seconds. So maybe running just a slightly different fueling number, or maybe just not calculating that for the second race and having to take on a wee bit more to make sure to get through to the end of the 30 as opposed to doing 22.
Yeah, just quickly, are you sure you're not going to the row below Craig on that? No, sorry, you are correct. I'm going to the row above on that. Yeah, so 16 seconds, that's brutal. So whether he hadn't quite added enough fuel, maybe, I'd say that's probably the case.
There's something interesting.
Oh yeah. Connor Nixon jumping Shane Van Gisbergen, and Shane with a 12-second pit time, Connor 10.1 seconds, so a couple of seconds difference there. Enough for Connor to get the jump. Connor did also pit a lap earlier, so the undercut probably having a little bit of an effect there as well to help him get some of that time. So we will see Shane with fresher tyres attacking Connor now. You can already see he's right there with him, and I'm sure he won't take long to find his way past.
Potentially not, but also with seeing these two here, our current race leader being Blake Greenhall, who hasn't stopped yet, Bruce Tannock is actually effective race leader.
He is too. So that's very interesting, and by 3 seconds now as well as Shane Van Gisbergen does find his way by Connor Nixon. So I wonder if there's been a little bit of a mistake from Shane in the pit stop sequence as well.
Yeah, unsure on that. It just, again, I think, 12 seconds. Not too far off what seems to be mostly average pit stop times of around that 10.5 seconds, but certainly not as extreme as some of the other guys sitting in the 15 and 16 second mark that we spoke about before.
Yeah, well, we saw Shane already had a few seconds on Bruce, and then he's come out. It was probably closer to 4 seconds behind when he actually left the pits. So we're looking at about a 7 or 8 second loss there somewhere.
Yes. Yeah, that is that's interesting, really. Shane now pointing his ears back a little bit as he seeks to close that margin between him and Bruce Tannock in front of him. Both of those guys pretty good mates, I believe. Bruce and Shane, having done some racing and some drifting together in the past, and it's no secret that Bruce has been given some help from Shane in the past with setups and bits and pieces. So Shane will be wanting to close that margin down so they can go and have a wee bit of fun themselves up towards the front.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to him getting there because I'm sure we will have fun watching it as much as they're going to have fun fighting. We know neither one of those guys backs down easily, so it'll be a very exciting battle.
That's
But meanwhile, we've got Bruce's teammate Joe Dirt putting the pressure on Connor Nixon.
That's a stunning photo, isn't it? We need to dig up some dirt around that one.
I am very interested to find out if that is David in the photo or if he's just found a photo online of an impressive mallet and decided to chuck that as his SDK driver profile picture. So get in touch, David, let us know, is that actually your mallet? If so, well done.
And of course we will accept full lies around it as well. You let us know whichever one you want to run with.
Speaking of runs, he's got a little bit of a run on there as kind of low final corner.
Certainly did, yeah. Connor just having a wee bit of trouble stabilising the rear end of his car coming out through the final corner there. But as you look a little bit further ahead from David Nash there, past over the roof of Connor Nixon, you can see that margin from Shane Van Gisbergen to Bruce Tannock is now down well within 1 second of each other. So he's only really taken a couple of laps to pull that back into very much drafting zone, and then Shane being able to do his thing and work out where he thinks that Bruce might be weak at what sections of the track, so he can line up one of his ever impressive passes.
Yeah, for sure. And just something interesting to look at is we saw Shane going quite wide. I think he may have picked up an off-track for that. There is a 17x incident point limit. Shane has only picked up 3 so far, so he's got a bit in reserve. And do not for a second believe that a guy of Shane's caliber is not calculating those off tracks that he's got available to him and using that to his advantage and figuring out where he can take a little bit of extra track where he needs it to get that extra speed.
100%. Yes, it's no well-known secret that the racing does have an incident limit, and some of our very freakishly fast guys will use those to their advantage, where they can work out where they might be able to get a few extra kilometres an hour difference running out of a corner, or whether it just straightens up a corner altogether, that they can close to anything up to half a second in time as he takes a
that's a big lunge!
massive dive down there as Bruce comes back and says, yeah, no, not that time.
There was a bit of a touch on the exit as well that unsettled Bruce a little bit, but it was a big send from Shane. He couldn't quite get it stopped and allowed Bruce to come back through, but he's tucked into the draft and he's got alongside. They're going to be side by side into the bus stop. Who blinks first? Bruce blinks first. Say that 3 times fast.
Bruce blinked first. No, I can't. There you go.
Can't even say it once.
No. Bruce blinked. No, still can't even say it slowly. And there you go. And that's that they're just, proofs in the pudding there, isn't it? That you get a guy of professional caliber, and yes, he certainly he took a nudge, and we knew he'd take a nudge coming down into turn 1. Bruce was aware of it. He didn't do anything dumb. He didn't try to close the door. He let it run out. He let Shane run out through wide. He was able to counter him, but of course only for the sake of a few extra corners as they came through the section of S's here into one of the fastest drafting zones of the track. And Shane was just able to bring it up tidily coming through the bus stop. And, being offline and bouncing over those curbs, if it was any one of us, Shane, it would have ended in disaster.
100%.
Just having a bit of a look through the rest of the order to see how their race is going as Mason moves out of the way of Brett O'Keefe, letting him go by, and see Ryan Cotterill and Blake Grenhall battling there in the back. Scott Pickering still out and about turning laps. Tony Lynch following his teammate around there in positions 10 and 9. Clear of the drama is Roger Forbird after having some early race pressure. Now has a wee bit of clear air between himself and Jason Cossey, who's just ahead of him, who's just starting to pull onto the back of Timothy Vaughan, who's sitting there in 6th. Let's see what kind of run Jason's able to pull through here. Timothy a little bit offline and running a wee bit deep. Looked like he might have just been running out of front brake pressure control there. Looked like he might have been close to locking up.
This battle looking like it's getting a little bit spicy. Jason keen to find a way past, but Timothy just doing enough at the moment to stay ahead. These guys will both be pushing the cars to their limits. That's why we see Timothy running a little bit wide at turn 1. That might open the door for, or create an opportunity for Jason to get a run up the hill and onto the straight.
We'll see there, I've just put up the pit lap data there, and Jason Cossey pitted 2 laps after Timothy Vaughan, and you can see that it is definitely opening up the potential for him to have a look. It's just whether or not he doesn't burn his tyres out looking too many times before making something happen.
Yeah, we saw him pull out of the draft and have a look down into the bus stop, but not able to get far enough alongside to get position there. I feel like the key is getting the run out of the loop and potentially doing what Tim's done to a few people, go to the outside at turn 6, hold on the outside there and get the inside into the final corner at 7. So we'll see if Jason can pull that off. You can see he's a bit further back here than he was a lap ago, so I don't think he's going to be able to have a look down at the bus stop. But I think potentially if it just eased out of the gas and stayed in the draft down here a lap ago, stick right behind through the bus stop and the outer loop at turn 5, then potentially it creates the opportunity to get that run and get alongside before turn 6.
Just have a quick look back. So I saw on the data Aaron Goodrick showing a number of laps down after this crash here. So
yeah, that's unfortunate, just getting loose in the middle of the bus stop, and he's in good company with that. Kimi Räikkönen did it in the NASCAR Cup car when he raced at Watkins Glen last year.
Certainly did. So we've actually missed that one there as well. David Nash passing Connor Nixon to take 3rd spot. So let's see that one there.
Coming from a long way back, so I think Connor potentially having a little bit of a minute up the get out of the throttle there.
Yeah.
And David able to take a pretty easy pass in the end.
Yeah, then that's what I said earlier. It looked like Connor's car, the way it was set up, just when he comes up through that uphill section, has to lift a couple of times just to keep the car moving in a straight direction rather than understeering towards the wall. But drama for Blake Grenhall has just popped up on the screen here, coming down into turn 1.
Oh, just the overcorrection off the back of that curb and firing off into the armco on the left. Gets it turned around back on track, but fair bit of damage on the front end, so it won't be quite tracking the same as it was before, I think.
No, don't think so either. This man here doing what he does best, extending his lead after coming out in 3rd place behind Bruce and Connor before after the pit stop, is now nearly 4.5 seconds clear of Mr. Tannock there in 2nd. So if anyone was in doubt to see whether or not he would be able to get towards the front again, well, he's just proved you wrong. Couple of laps to go. Shane over Bruce, who leads his teammate David Nash in 3rd, and Connor Nixon there in 4th. So he'll be secretly hoping for something drastic to happen there at the front, maybe with some late traffic or something getting in their way, crashing them out even. Sometimes we have weird sadistic thoughts like that when we're that close to a podium, but just out of reach of probably natural racing ability to make anything happen. Connor's teammate just sitting behind him by a few seconds in 5th, and then their next teammate another few seconds behind them in 6th. He's the only one on track at the moment who is somewhat close to being put under any threat of a late race pass, and that would be Jason Cossey as he follows Timothy Vaughan in towards the final lap now. Dirty Diesels, Tony Lynch stalking teammate Eamon Young. As they come around the final corner of the lap.
Oh, someone's very wide there.
Yep, so Brett O'Keefe and Craig Mason were close to each other there, but Craig running very wide out through that second to last corner. And I would say probably have picked up at least an off track, maybe a slowdown depending on how far he went.
And finds the tyres there. Shane Van Gisbergen coming through the last couple of corners now.
And around the last corner there, SVG,
running
number
to the grass.
97, across the finish line over Bruce Janik. P2, well played. David Nash, his teammate in P3. Great racing by those guys. Connor Nixon takes out P4. He'll go down and do some celebratory donuts, no doubt, as his teammate beats him to the chase. Absolutely fanging for it. Timothy Vaughan coming through turn 1, about the same as we've seen Mr. Tannock do at Pukekohe Park in the drift car. High speed entry, left hand all the way down. Jason Cossey rounds out P7, not too bad of a finish for him, only dropping down one spot along with his Roger Forbert. Monster livery P8, Eamon Young took out 9 and Tony Lynch in 10. Nice racing there really by everyone.
Yeah, it was very good. It all looked pretty clean. There were a few mistakes we saw from people, but I think race control were kept fairly quiet tonight,
Yeah.
so they'll be happy about that.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you, because obviously I had the comms turned off tonight for the folks at home, because sometimes unwanted things can be heard. So did you hear any calls from any drivers about driving standards or behaviour?
I didn't actually hear anything called in. I heard race control mention something about the race 1 contact between the two Vermilion cars, but there was actually a comment put in text chat from one of them saying that they weren't going to protest it, so I think it was just left as a racing incident.
There we go.
And then a bit of banter at the end involving Blake Greenhall and Craig Mason, and race control got involved in that as well as just simply banter, but that's about all I've heard from race control all night.
Well, do you know what? I reckon it's because we're here.
Must be. They're on their best behaviour because we're watching.
As if you think. But, so, anyway, that was round 11 at Watkins Cup. Sparko Gaming Supercars NZ. It's just been an awesome season. It really has been. I was a wee bit disappointed that I missed out on a few of the earlier races in the season being over in the UK. And I can't believe that we're only a few short weeks away from getting ready to round into a whole new series. It's certainly going to be exciting, but not to take anything away from the last few races of the season coming up, because do you know what we've got coming up on Thursday, Shano?
Well, Thursday we're back here, but adding the little boat section on.
We are.
We're doing the Watkins Glen boat circuit in the GT3, so that will be interesting. A good preparation for the upcoming Watkins Glen 60 hour, which actually I'm not going to be using a GT3 car for that at this stage. That will be in a LMP2 for my team.
Yep. You guys did that last year, I believe, didn't you?
Last year for this race we were in the GT3s, but we've decided this year to do
It was Daytona.
to use the LMP2s for the races where they are available.
Cool. What an awesome thing to think about. So I definitely won't be rating the fast setup for Thursday night for the GT3 because you wouldn't have bothered to work on one. So I guess I'll just have to have a fall back onto our Nürburgring setup once again. And then in another week's time, following on from that for the GT3's final race, we actually do go back to the Nürburgring. We featured there twice for this season. One was the combined, which was similar to the 24-hour, and then our last race will just be on the GP circuit. As far as the V8s go, this was their second to last race, and next Tuesday they head off to Virginia International Full Circuit, and that is a very, very cool track to be at, and we will be there with our Div 2 guys for their final race of the season. So certainly some really cool and fun and exciting racing coming up. You'll be able to tune on Thursday with Dad and Wayne as they do the calls on Thursday, and then you'll be back with us for the final race next Tuesday. And yeah, once again, I just can't believe how quickly it's all come around, and once again we'll be ready and ripping and ready to welcome new people into iRacing, into the Supercars NZ League. If you want to know any information around that, come and find us on Facebook. Search up the Supercars New Zealand community page. You can find us on there. Make sure you give us a like and subscribe here on YouTube. It helps us out a lot. Shano, thank you once again for joining me up here in the broadcasting lounge. Is there any final thanks you'd like to pass out for tonight?
Just thanks Simblacks for the weekly sponsor. Thank you Sparko Gaming by All Ports for your season sponsor, and thank you iRacing for giving us the platform to go racing on and to broadcast the race tonight. And of course, thanks to everybody at home for tuning in.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you very much, everyone, and we will catch you later.